Hi everyone, you're welcome back to Kemini Cuts and Seam. Today I'll be showing you a different method of hip allocation. I already have a butt allocation on my channel, so you can equally watch that. But this one is the hip part proper. It's actually a requested video. So now we are all carved differently, no body shaming, but of course there are some parts we are endowed and the other parts we aren't, okay? And the essence of fashion is so that we can look at our client or whoever we are making a garment for and be able to know the technicalities that will bring out the best, that will accentuate the physique of that person. And so this is exactly what we are going to do about the skirt part. So now you will indicate your start point by rolling a straight line, and the next thing we'll get the vertical dimensions. Now I'll be using 8 inches for our hip line, okay, and 18 inches for the knee line, and I'm using 25 inches, okay, and I'll add 2 inches for a hemming. Okay, so on the hip line, this is where the formula comes in. It's total hip measurement divided by 2 minus 1.5. That's for the front bodies. So now the total circumference I'm working with is 40, and dividing that by 2 is 20. Therefore means 20 for the front bodies and 20 for the back. But because the front is not as curvy as the back, so we will subtract 1.5 inches. Now the 1.5 inches we're subtracting depends. If the difference between the waist and the hip is more than 6, you use 1.5. If it's less than 6, then you go for 1 inch difference, okay? So but this measurement, the statistics I'm using here is more than 6, so I'm using 1.5 inches. So when you get to the hip measurement, you will subtract 1.5 from the front bodies. So if I'm having 20 for the front bodies, 20 minus 1.5, that's 18.5. And now if I have to divide that by 2, I have 9.25. Okay, so on my waist, this is my waistline, okay? On my waistline, I'm using 32 inches. So 32 divided by 4, that's 8 inches. And then I'm adding 1 inch for seaming allowance. For this method, you will need to deal with that manipulation, okay? So I'm just adding 1 inch for seaming allowance at the waistline. Note that, please. So on the hip line, I'm marking half of 18.5 inches, remember, so that's 9.25. I'm marking 9.25 plus 1 inch for seaming allowance. I've done all the vertical dimensions out, okay? So this is our waistline, our hip line, our knee line, and our legs. So that's this for the hemming, okay? Okay, so we're already done with the hip measurement where we placed 9.25 plus 1 inch for seaming allowance. Now on your knee line, you'll be subtracting 1 from the 9.25, and that gives us 8.25. 8.25 and 1 inch for seaming allowance. You can choose not to. It's a draft. You can choose not to add your seaming allowance at this point. Perhaps when you're cutting it on the fabric, you have to add your seaming allowance, definitely. But I like to just do it at once here, okay? So you bring down the same measurement to your length, okay, and add 1 inch. So you will, at this point, need to connect the dots. So I'll be drawing this, connecting the waistline to the hip, and from the hip line to the knee line. Okay. Now we will have to come back to the waistline and go down here on the center front with 1/2 inch, and then you connect it to your waist measurement. That's to make the skirt sit proper. So having done that, we can now cut out the front bodies. So to drop the back bodies, of course, we will need a zipper allowance, and the zipper allowance I can just use about 1.5. Okay, so now I used 1.5 for the zip allowance for the back bodies. Okay, now this is the center back, that's the line. So now we will need to extend our hip line, because that's where we are doing the hip allocation. All right, so I'll be extending the hip line because that's where I'll be placing the hip allocation. Now the waist measurement still remains the same. On the hip line, remember we subtracted 1.5 from the front body, so we'll be adding that 1.5 to the back bodies. Now the back bodies already had 20 inches allocated to it, so adding 1.5 that we subtracted from the front bodies, that gives us 21.5. And so because we're cutting it on fold, you divide 21.5 by 2, that's 10.75. Now remember we added 1 inch, so don't get confused with that. We have 1 inch already added, so this already is 10.75. So let me do it this way so you won't get confused. We are minusing 1 from this measurement that we already have. The measurement for front body was 9.25, and we added 1 inch for seam allowance, so that gave us 10.25. Okay, so if we are minusing 1 from each, so we'll start the measurement from that point. 10.25. Okay, and then you will add 1 inch for the seaming allowance. Now this method, I use it for people who don't really have butt, but so much roundness around the hip bone. Okay, so this takes care of such shape. All right, so that's our measurement for the hip. So we'll be connecting this from the waist to that point and then back to the knee. Okay, just like we did the other shaping. So that's the only difference. The waist still remains the same, and we'll connect it like so. And then that's it. So we'll cut in this. And then for the back bodies, I usually make the back bodies 1 inch or 1.5 higher than the front bodies. So now, because I'm making a pencil skirt, at the hem, this is the hem, you can do well to draw the line. And then beneath, I can go in with 1 inch. Okay. And extend the hip line, because that's where we'll be taking that measurement to. So this becomes our new back center line. Okay, so if I'm doing a normal slit now, I'll use 1 inch following this new line. Okay, so you ignore this line at this point. So I'll be measuring 1 inch. all the way up. So having done that, we can now cut out our back borders. Okay, so this is the final look of our draft. So this is the front bodies and that's back bodies. Now when you're sewing, this part goes this way. Okay, already we've made it equal at this point and at the hem line. Okay, you try as much as you can to make sure it goes in. So that's it. Now if you can sew this out, you have a perfect fitting for a very comfy body. Okay, so if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Okay, just hit the subscribe button, that red button. Just hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification button so you get to know about our uploaded videos. And for my subscribers, thank you so much. I appreciate you all.